He didn't answer me yet, just so I tell you.
Well, I think, you know, in respect of everybody else's time, I'm going to at least go ahead and get started slowly. And hopefully Mike will get here soon. The crazy weather, he could just
He said, crud, I'm a part of that. Be there in a minute. Go ahead and get started. Just finish dinner.
Okay. We changed times on him in his defense, because normally he doesn't have to be here till 7. So, but I just want to go ahead and get started and call this meeting to order. This is a joint meeting of committees. For those of you who aren't familiar, Dr. Carrie Drake is the chair of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee, and I am Judy McGinnis. I'm the chair of the Special Ed and Pupil Services Committee. But the topics that we're discussing tonight really kind of have a leg in both pupil services and curriculum. So we're doing a joint committee, and Dr. Carrie Drake was kind enough to extend the honor to me to chair the entire meeting. So I do appreciate that from him. Other members of the committees are Dana Hipser and Peg Pennepacker, are members of our Curriculum and Instruction Committee, and Dr. Carrie Drake and Mike Elliott are the other 2 members of my Pupil Services Special Education Committee. We also have with us, now I'm not sure who all I saw, but I definitely saw Dr. Andrea Farina and Kimberly Bass. I believe I saw Amy Coyle here, correct? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if Sarah is here.
Yep, I'm here.
I was gonna say, but my guess is she's here because she doesn't usually miss. And Carol Giblin is our Assistant Director of Special Education. So those are the administrators that you'll probably hear speaking during the meeting. So I'd like to start by getting an approval on Dr. Drake's behalf for the approval of January 2021 meeting minutes for Curriculum and Instruction Committee. So if we could get the approval of those minutes from his committee members.
I'll make that motion
to approve those minutes.
Okay, so I think we have a motion and a second there. So all in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay. And any opposed on your committee? No. Okay, good. Then I'd like to ask for an approval of the January 2021 meeting minutes for the Pupil Services Committee. So
I'll make that motion.
thank you, Dr. Drake. Mrs. Cunningham, would you mind seconding that?
I can do that. Second.
Thank you. You used to be on the committee. So all in favor, or I'm sorry, any questions on the agenda? I mean, on the minutes? No?
I'm good.
Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. So now we're going to move on to an update on instructional programs at the Upper Perk School District. And we're going to touch on a couple different things. So I'm going to turn this over to, I believe, Carol Giblin, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Carol Giblin for now, and that's our Assistant Director of Special Education.
So good evening, everybody. We just wanted to share an update with you on special education, in-person learning, really to date from the start of the school year on August 31st. And so I thought it would be good to just really start off. If you take a look at the top, you might already obviously be familiar with this, but in case you're not, these are currently the K-12 programs that we do offer by building. So if you take a look there at the top, you can see Marlboro, all of our schools K-12 do provide learning support programs. At Marlboro, Hereford, and the 4-5 Center, we also offer the learning support, emotional support programming. And then at Hereford, we do have 2 district-run programs for the autistic support, K-3, and at the 4-5 Center, we also have 2 autistic support programs there as well. At the middle school, we have the learning support, the emotional support, autistic support programming, and then life skills support. And then if you take a look at the high school there, continuing with learning support, emotional support, autistic support programming, Life skills, multiple disability support is also at our high school. And then our work program, which is basically our students transitioning and working that 18 to 21 program. So we just wanted to make sure that you, could see what the current programs are. And then we just have some general bullet points before we actually take a look at some numbers. So starting on 8/31, the first day of school, there were recommendations for in-person learning. And we really thought it was very important at that time to look at our low incident programs. And then some of our other students as well that might have had a disability, for example, intellectual disability, but might not have been participating in one of those low incident programs. And at that time on 8/31, what was offered was the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and those locations at the start of the school year, and this had to do with the health and safety plan and mitigation. We held those programs at Hereford, the middle school. So at Hereford, if there was anybody from Marlboro, they also attended Hereford. At the middle school, it was any students from the 4-5 and the middle school, and then the high school remained. And this was 3¼ hours that were offered. Then when we got to November 9th, if you recall, that's when we then transitioned. All of our schools were then open, and any student went back if they weren't at their home school and started attending there. Again, that continued to be that 3.3¼ hours daily. And then in October and into, I think it was actually December 16th was the last date. There were some, Kim, I lost.
I'm sorry, that was me.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. There was some in-person learning for some of our students. There was a much higher number really at our middle school on those days. And that was to support students with the progress monitoring, to do it in person if at all possible, as well as some of the interventions. And that again was also 3.25 hours. So if you take a look then at the bottom, these are actual numbers. Now, before we actually look at them, it's really important to note these numbers for special ed can literally change from one day to the next. And all of that is really based on the data. So if you take a look, I put some certain dates leading up to the 19th when we moved into hybrid. On 8/31, these were our students by buildings, learning support, all of those different programs, and you can see those numbers. Large majority, and those students really were students from our low incident programs. It's also important to note, obviously parents would make a declaration if some of our special ed students then and now are going through UPOLA, and then some of our students are still remaining virtual. So that had an impact on some of the numbers and programs. So you'll see at the very bottom, it has those total numbers. So I'm not going to go through each of the programs by building. You can see them there, but you'll see when we went from August 31st to November 9th, and then December 7th, you'll see those numbers increasing. And the reason you would start to see those increasing is our teachers prior to the start of the school year, we all met. It's really critical in special education that we look at the data. And so the number one thing we look at is student goals, and it's, their progress monitoring. So where students are, and then if they're being monitored on certain goals weekly or bi-weekly, our teachers are really looking at that because the goal is our students need to make progress. If and when there were, whether there was a lack of progress, whether there was a lack of engagement, there's a number of factors they would look at. And as you see those increases, that was our teachers looking at that data and then turning around and really going back to the team, communicating with general education teachers as well, and then communicating with the special ed department, really making a recommendation for a student to attend for the in-person learning. And so that is where you get those increases. When you get to the 19th of January, obviously that's when hybrid started. So our student, those numbers then did jump there as well. And again, literally, so from December 7th until the 19th, weekly, daily, we'll get communication from our teachers. They'll provide the data. We'll take a look at that, and then they'll move forward. We'll collaborate with transportation, and that is where we get here. I will say in our middle school there too, when we did get to the 19th, so as I say, every day, there might be a slight change here or there. There's a couple of those students And yes, our recommendation is for all of our students in low incidence mainly at this point to attend for the 4 days. But again, any other students, it's recommended for 4 days. Again, that would be based on the data. So that's a summary in a nutshell. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
I just had a real quick question. So it's 3.5 hours, 4 days a week.
Oh,
Whereas-
sorry. I can jump in right there, Carrie. So up until the 19th of January, so I apologize, I should have said that. It was 3.25 hours. When we got to January the 19th for hybrid learning, any students recommended to attend in person, it's full days. So
Okay.
that was, yeah. So starting on the 19th, they were full days. Up until then, it was 3.25 hours. The other thing that I should have probably added in there, on the 19th, it was sent out and recommended for all of our K-3 students that are special education. The recommendation was open for all of those students to attend 4 days, K-3, which I think we think is a great thing. And so I could have added that in there as well.
Okay. So I guess the other part of my question was
Sorry.
for the time where it was only the 3.5 hours, is there anything, obviously it's because of COVID, but is there anything from the state requiring, I guess before that we had roughly 7 hours per day? Is there any requirement for the state or like a makeup for that instruction?
So we'll talk a little bit in one of the bullets down about summer programming.
Okay. Okay, I'll table that question then.
Any other questions right now?
Okay, Mrs. McGinnis, would you like me just to roll through to letter B?
Real quick, so none of the other board members had any questions about special education, correct? Even if you're not on the committee, I'm okay if you want to ask a question from the board. No? Okay. All right, then, yes, well, Mrs. Bass, why don't you go ahead and move on to hybrid UPOLA?
Okay. We also wanted to start with a look at the numbers, and of course, that's the wrong one. So give me just 1 second to pull up the correct one. We wanted to share with you exactly who is in what programs and what those numbers look like. I even went so far as to put the percentage in there for you because I think that's pretty important to see. You know, not only the total number of students in each program, but what that means in terms of a percentage. So as soon as my donut, there we go. Okay, can you guys see that? Can you see a list of, oh, that's still the 19th. Goodness gracious, I'm having some trouble. I linked in the wrong one, so if you give me just a second to pull that up, I can find it. I apologize. Okay. I think I'm straining my Wi-Fi here. Andrew, do you happen to have that? I sent it an email. Actually, maybe I have it in my email. Dr. Roach, anybody? There we go.
Yeah, I'm
I have
trying.
the camera.
Yeah. I'm sorry, my,
Dr. Farina, do you have it or do you want me to pull it up?
You can pull it up, Sarah.
Okay.
The perils of a Zoom
listen,
lifestyle.
I had everything pulled up here. Actually, I had it linked and pulled up and I just, Sarah, do I need to give you permission to share?
Yep, I just need to be able to share my screen.
Thank you so very much.
No problem.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
There you go, Sarah. Thank you again.
Yep. All right. Can you see the document here, Kim?
Yes, thank you. That's the one I made. So if you're taking a look at how many students we have in each building and where they are located. So at Hereford, if you have a 4-day-a-week student, that's either a kindergarten student or a special education student, as Mrs. Giblin just indicated. We have them broken out by blue and gold and who's there on which day. So I gave you the total hybrid number and then I gave you the percentage. So then the same is true for Marlboro. Your 4-day students are your K or special education students, and you can see blue, gold, a total hybrid number, and then UPOLA. So about 53 to 50 or 54 to 55% of both of our K-3 buildings are in the hybrid model. Sarah, can you page down just a little bit? Thank you so much. About 71% of the 4-5 center is in the building for the hybrid model. Again, those 4-day-a-week students, because of transitions, they'll be a little off from what Mrs. Giblin shared. I think we're one off there, just because we missed one in transition. And so you can see the makeup of the 4-5 center and for middle school as well. About 62% of middle school students are attending in the hybrid model. 4-day-a-week you see there, and then the full virtual number are students who are just Zooming in from home on a daily basis. They're not coming into the building at all. And Sarah, just a little bit lower for high school, thank you. Again, about 52% of the high school is in the hybrid model. About 42% are out at a full virtual model. And we have about 58 students who are coming in for 4 days a week. When you look at the total number of students, you see that right now rostered, and that may be off by about 5 or 6. There were some that came in on the report and didn't actually have a home there. So we're about 3173. Okay, so I wanted to be sure that you saw that. Sarah, thank you so much for your quick reflexes. I appreciate your help there.
No problem.
And so I'll share my screen again. And we'll get right back to where we were. Can you see my presentation now? Okay, thank you. So when we take a look at, what's happening, oh my goodness, please forgive me. With hybrid, UPOLA full virtual, and we look at our technology, we're right now, as we have been, trying to support all of our current students and teachers in the model in which we're teaching. We think they're doing a fantastic job. We do always know there's room for improvement. They know that. But we just are so pleased with the amount of time, energy, and effort being expended and the amount of collaboration. And reflecting about, is there anything good that's come out of pandemic schooling? Yes, a lot more collaboration and time to work with one another and focus on specific students. And sometimes 2 teachers have the care of 1 student. And so we're finding that there are a lot of advantages to that. The technology has been fantastic. We continue to get requests from teachers for different software and hardware. We look at it. Sarah and I look at it. Jim Roth and his team take a look at it. We go to our new K-5 instructional coach who has a real keen eye for technology. And we try to see, is this something that we do need to get? There is some grant money still available. And so as we're able to meet the needs of what our teachers have for distance learning, we certainly are doing that. I know probably paramount on a lot of our minds is, what does next year look like? And will we be in full time? And we're so hoping to be in full time. Do we think though that there may be some families who want to stay out because they found it was a great model for them, or they still have some fears, or there might be some health issues in the home? We do believe there will be a population. We've always had a small population interested in that. And so we are now, with our great expertise and time spent on all of this, thinking about how can Upper Perkiomen create and share their own cyber offering, just as we're doing this year. And so we're investigating a lot of different options. We're looking at some different pricing. We're thinking about what worked well this year. We'll certainly engage the teachers shortly in what that might look like for next year. Just so you know, it's on our minds, and we are doing some research, talking with other school districts and seeing what might be available. Dr. Farina, would you add anything, or anybody else that's on the screen, since we have a lot of principals here? Sarah?
No, I would just say that, many members of the school board know that several years ago with Mrs. Stevens, we really sort of leaned into trying to offer virtual options and aligning those curriculum writing to always continue to offer those types of programs for kids. I think this was sort of the perfect storm of needing to do that and creating an urgency to do that. And now we will and we acknowledge we will have families who continue to request that even beyond this school year. So, as an administrative team, we've spent a lot of time thinking around that and how to best do that in order to serve the students who come brick and mortar, as well as those families who are really looking for a long-term virtual option. And, sort of gauging where that is, because we do know many leave us to go to other programs, and we certainly would love them to stay in the Upper Perk family and stay with our curriculum. So, those are the explorations we're having in order to bring that back to the board for consideration. But, the conversation is still way back to 4 years ago when we started the virtual programming at Upper Perk. So, I think there's more to discuss and flesh out around what those virtual options will be and how we will logistically manage them as a school district. So, that's sort of the future of what the board can expect.
Thank you. The only other thing I would add, and really we've been in a continual improvement model. We're so sensitive to feedback that we get. And so certainly hearing from parents is an important piece of that. And we did hear from some parents at the last few board meetings. And so as a group, we kind of targeted some improvements based on what we'd already heard and based on the fact that everything that was suggested is really, really good for kids. So we did talk to principals. They will be, or they may have already talked to their staff about finding some time on a Wednesday for students to meet with teachers who require some time to do some intervention, for lack of a better word, to just check in on kids. And so the high school always had that. The high school has always had 4 different hours in the morning or almost an hour each, where any student can check in with their period 1, period 3, period 5. So the middle school now has kind of woven that back into their schedule, and K-5 will be doing the same on this upcoming Wednesday. And we really do want to see how many kids we're getting, and do we either need to extend that time, or are we finding that that's an okay time for students? This is a time where teachers would invite students to come, and or teachers could request time to come in and work with the teachers. So we heard that loud and clear. That's a great idea. We do believe that was part of the old Wednesday. And so we do want to bring that back as something that's really good for students.
So I'm going to stop you there, if you don't mind. So I'd like to flesh that out a little bit more. You remember that, a couple weeks ago at the school board meeting, we heard from parents who opted to stay fully virtual. And that, but they were feeling that there were some issues, and we promised that we would delve into it, talk to you guys about it at this meeting. And one of the things, of course, was that they were saying that Wednesdays were just not working in the virtual world. So you say that you're looking at making changes. Can we discuss some of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the first thing that we thought would be really easy to do is just that intervention time. As we said, it never left in the high school, and we're building it back in K-5. So certainly we can entertain questions about that. And truthfully, once we talked a little bit more with our administrative team, they said, Kim, I think our teachers are doing that now. I'm pretty sure that if a teacher needs to see somebody, they're contacting them on a Wednesday. And so that was just a logical extension of kind of what we were hearing. Dr. Farina, would you add? I know you were in on one of the meetings that I missed last week.
Yes, we talked about being strategic. Some of our internal conversation as an administrative team, and the principals are here, so they can happily join in. Some of the recommendations that we shared is that, in an instructional period, that coming together to check in with a group, and sort of honoring everyone and creating that common space. So I had the opportunity to talk to a couple of families last week just about the things that we were hearing at the board meeting. And things like finesse and common ground, kept emerging as themes. And so, our recommendation with the administrative team was creating that space at the beginning and end of instructional chunks of time, in order to have that dialogue, and then opening up that intervention time to continue those kinds of support mechanisms, but being really purposeful about it and honoring it K-5. The other themes that emerge from some of those conversations is, parents have kids who span many grade levels. And so when they make a statement, it may not necessarily be about all of them, all the grade levels. When we dug into the high school, those things still existed on Wednesday. But as we went back, worked our way backwards, there were some things that were different. And so, we wanted to create that structure on Wednesday so families knew that is where they could go. And so, I think some of that was present, but maybe not on the surface, if that makes sense. So it was, it looked very different before we transitioned in January. And so now we're trying to sort of re-educate that those opportunities exist. Here they are. And then, some of the logistical side of it is making sure we're keeping records to know the kids we are meeting with on Wednesday. So we can make sure that if we're hearing of concerns that bubble up, that that those children are getting the attention that they need. And so that's some of the internal conversation our administrators had, and we're talking to their faculties about it last week.
So what kind of changes did you actually make, or are you in the process of making, whichever one that is?
So we pulled together kind of a list of things that we heard, and we heard that lack of time to work with teachers on a Wednesday was an issue. And so we're K-8, making sure we have that hour of intervention time in there and keeping track of who visits so that we can see if we need to expand that time available. And as we said, I really feel like some teachers were already using some time on a Wednesday for that. The other concern that we heard was that sometimes virtual students aren't feeling a part of face-to-face class. And so we really talked about sharing announcements that pertain to every student first, and then, front loading emails with information that applies to every student. We also really need the help of families with this. If you've never been a teacher, I'm not sure you can understand how important it is to have to read the room. So even on Zoom, like I'm looking now, okay, who looks confused, who's following along, so it's nice when you're able to read the room if you're a teacher, trying to really see if students have understood what you're talking about. It's difficult already to feel engaged over Zoom. And so that eye-to-eye contact, even over a computer screen, is really important. So you will hear as board members, and you'll hear as community members, students, and parents, that the importance of those cameras on cannot be understated. So if parents will help us with that, and that may help with some of the engagement. We've also shared with them some best practices, as Dr. Farina mentioned: whole group start, whole group end, whole group Q&A, teachers really using that wait time to be sure they have an opportunity to check the chat and to hear from every student in the classroom, whether it's Zoom or in the room. And then we also want to make sure that at every building level, all students are aware of what clubs are currently running, what's happening. Can I join this club, that club? Can I sign up for music lessons? Is there some time when I can do lunch bunch with a counselor? So we're starting to formulate just lists of things to say, here's what's available just on one sheet. We know principals do a fantastic job, as do teachers, of sending this stuff out, but I'm always one for a quick glance. Like if I want my kid to get involved, I want to look at that thing and say, hey, try this. And then the other thing we talked about, Judy, is really, we have, as a part of good practice, always surveyed our families once we've been in a different instructional model starting last March. And so we do believe we would like to survey all families. As Dr. Farina said, though, we want to make sure that's purposeful and specific so that we're getting the feedback per building, per grade level that will help us make those changes. Yeah. Just thinking about that timing, I think, a little bit more. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, and I think, I had a nice, and I know she's here, so I'm just going to call her out. I had a great long conversation with Jen Moran last week, and, I took the opportunity to listen to her feedback, but then ask her for her opinion as well on surveys, because I made that statement. And then, she gave me some good feedback in that, families are viewing each level very differently. And so, to do one survey for all families, and is probably not going to give us the information that we want to make the changes. So, you know, in one place that intervention, those Wednesdays are not working, but in other places they are. So, you know, it's to make a sweeping structural change, you know, I think you have to tweak the system, but, you know, sometimes those comments aren't made about every level. They're made about a specific, you know, maybe K-5 UPOLA. And so those are the kinds of things that we need to tweeze out of that. I think we do have to make some of those adjustments or just call those adjustments out on Wednesdays. But when thinking about the survey, it's really how are we going to get that information that we really need in order to make that change that will make it more successful for kids at that particular grade and in whichever program that they're in. So, you know, I think we've talked a little bit about that. And then, you know, we also have this competing interest of butting up against going full-time. You know, are we coming back at any point? So there's a lot of dynamics at play that we're trying to figure out how, you know, how will that impact the kids at the elementary level as well? So, you know, that's why when we were talking about surveying, it was honest feedback from parents. We said, you're asking us questions that are never going to give you what we really want you to know. And so I think we have to be really purposeful and delicate about making sure it's targeted. And so, you know, as for what that would look like, I'm still not sure because it's going to have to be by level, by program.
I want to open it up to other committee members first. I can only see 4 people on my screen for some reason, I guess because we're sharing the screen. So I might need some help, but.
That better?
Oh, that's way better.
There
Yeah.
you go. I'll stop sharing for now.
So I see Peg's hand up, so I'm going to start with Peg. I'm going to let Peg go ahead. I think she has a question.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around what Wednesdays look like logistically for teachers. So I need some help with that.
So most of the morning, Mrs. Pennypacker, is teachers are meeting with their students, K-5. Let me give you K-5. K-5, there's a morning meeting as there is every day. And so they're checking in. It's about a half hour long. They're helping them understand what this Independent Wednesday looks like. What are some things they could/should be doing? What'll happen after that is an intervention hour, K-5. So they can keep kids on the line. They can call kids to come in and work with them during that hour. The rest of the day is really dedicated to hybrid planning for K-5, because remember, we have those triads. And one of the things we know in speaking with a lot of teachers is this planning time is integral to their ability to meet the demands of the structure that we're in. And so for some teachers, K-5, they're in their triad groups. Others, they're planning with a special area teacher. Others are in a committee meeting or a faculty meeting or a data analysis meeting. And so the day is really structured to allow for them to meet with the different groups that they need to. And a good chunk of that time is for that triad planning to make sure everybody's on the same page, we're standards based, we're pacing correctly.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, it appears to me that it could be different for each teacher. Like it's not kind of a regimented type of schedule, that it's kind of particular to each teacher and each, you know, depending on the triad, depending on who's going where.
Yeah, well, the time is structured. So there's a 2 hour or 1.5 hour chunk that's triad planning. And so you know who your partner is there. And then it may be that the specialists are planning with this triad here. Principals are really good at figuring out those type of schedules so they can hodgepodge and move people around so they're able to talk to whoever they want to. So the teachers have a similar schedule. But again, as you're indicating, according to their role, maybe it looks a little bit different.
And there's adequate and appropriate planning time for teachers?
There are some here. I know we just had an invite in the chat to talk a little bit more about it. I just want to finish and say K-8 has intervention time on a Wednesday morning, and then again their planning time. And then at the high school, there are 4 different blocks of time. So if a student needs help in period 1, they can go into that intervention time, and then the 3 other ones for the day, and then the rest of that time is planning. The planning at the middle and the high school looks a little different because they don't have triads, but we do have a lot of teachers, certainly at the middle school, teaching different grade levels and courses. And so to coordinate that time is important. And then the same at the high school. For a teacher who teaches different courses, they do need to meet with their peers, and that could be 2 to 3 different groups. So I'll stop talking now. That was the whole K-5. I hope that helped a little bit, Peg. And then Judy, you can.
Just for clarity, can you explain to those who may not be aware what a triad means and what it applies to?
Sure. So in the K-5 programming, students who come in the blue model have a face-to-face teacher on Monday, Tuesday, and then they have a virtual teacher on a Thursday, Friday. And so that's not necessarily the same teacher. And so we have kind of those co-planning groups with an additional reading specialist or math specialist. There could be a special education teacher in there. And so they're working to make sure that the face-to-face activities match the virtual activities, and that they're able to kind of pull that off in a way that's seamless, and we don't have any group of students getting too far ahead of another group. I don't know if that was a good explanation. There might be somebody who could do it better.
So is that a teacher only activity, the triad, or is that involve the students? The triad is to
No,
make
that's
sure
not,
everyone's centered?
that's
Teacher
that's
planning.
just
It's
planning
teacher
for
planning.
teachers. Yeah, no
Okay.
students. Mhm.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
So I was gonna, have board members ask questions, but I saw several teachers posting in the chat, and they might be able to answer our questions before we ask them. So the first one I saw was Mr. Folks, who I believe is at the middle school. It sounded like you had something you wanted to share. For those of you who are new to committee meetings, because I don't think I've ever had 44 people at our virtual committee meetings before. It's usually 4 of us. So it is a little more informal. So we do kind of stop and talk. It's not like a regular board meeting where it's, okay, somebody talks and then we vote on stuff. This is much more discussion oriented. So I'm going to be very kind of loosey-goosey here. And since we had teachers who said, hey, let me try and explain some stuff, I'm going to let them try and explain some stuff. So we're going to start with Mr. Folks.
Well, thank you, Mrs. McGinnis, and for reminding us of the task force meeting about the meeting and kind of asking for our input with this. There's 2 things I'd actually like to speak to. One was the idea of intervention time for I call my Zoomers, my Zoomers. At the middle school level, we have a 90-minute period that we're in, where 60 minutes, I'll say, is like new active instruction with everyone in the room. And then 30 minutes is intervention. Now, you primarily want to try to get the kids that are in front of you because, they're the ones that are there to kind of get that information. But I have most of my Zoomers stay with me for the entire 30 minutes because I go between the 2 groups. So at least in the middle school, many of the teachers are using that intervention already Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, that 30 minutes a period to work with those kids. And to speak about Wednesdays, I've heard there's been a lot of information or I keep hearing words like collaboration, and feedback. To those points, I know you spoke with many parents for feedback, but I don't know if any teachers have been approached for feedback in terms of what's it look like on the ground kind of thing. And in terms of collaboration, my schedule on Wednesdays is full of it's collaboration all day. I teach across 2 grade levels in 2 different topic areas for science. So basically I'm meeting with people I cannot meet with during the rest of the week because we're on different teams, we're on different grade levels. It's the only time I can collaborate. And I will say, I've worked extensively with Rich Staniak, who teaches some 6th and 7th grade. So we teach a common 7th grade Earth Space Science, and working together with him, I don't think I've had as much professional growth in doing this. And I think it's because while curriculum is important, the delivery of that instruction, the delivery of that curriculum is new. We're in a new model, and we don't have the tools for that right now. And so being able to collaborate and work through this new model with the delivery of that instruction has been vital and key. And I know also in addition to that, to try to help our struggling learners, that SST time, or MTSS sometimes it's still called, the only time we can get together as a 7th grade team, which I meet with, and as an 8th grade team, which I also meet with, is on that Wednesday. And that's the only time everyone can get together because of the cross grades and cross team levels. So in a sense, I am, and I can always meet with students if necessary on that day, but I am literally in a meeting every single time, every part of that day, except from 11 to 11:30 when that's lunch. And then possibly at the end of the day from 2:15 to 2:45 is the only time I'm not in a meeting, either collaborating with another staff member on our topic or as a team with SST, or as a grade level with all of 8th grade going over our agendas, or in a faculty meeting. So for me, these Wednesdays have probably been, like I said, the most growth I've seen professionally in terms of being able to do what we're doing this year for this. But with that, of course, comes the idea of what can we do to help the struggling learners? Well, yes, we want to meet with them when we can in those 30 minutes. Part of that is also part of this process of meeting as a team to see, hey, is she struggling in your class? Is he struggling? What success are you having? And without that Wednesday, we can't have that collaboration time, and those things can get missed. So far for us, at least in my experience in the middle school, those Wednesdays have been ideal for getting that base to help those students. So we know when we do meet with them in that 30 minutes at the end of a period, we know like, hey, I've spoken with your math teacher. We know you're struggling with this, or let's work on this. Or I know you might owe me, Mr. Detweiler this, or Mrs. Barron that. So we can have more of that impact with them, even for my Zoomers too. Thank you.
So is Zoomers what we're referring to as our virtual? Or
That's what I call them. I say, hey, Zoomers, all right, Zoomers.
I like it. I like it. I think there was, let me just check the chat real quick. Who was next? Nikki Hauer, who
Wait, before she goes, can I add something to that just real quick? So first of all, I think all of us understand the magnitude of what we're all trying to deal with. There's a lot of different back and forth. Can everybody hear me okay, by the way? Okay, all right. So Mr. Folks, thank you very much for what you said, because I think that adds into what, our Zoomer parents, which is a cool word to put it, want to hear. Is they want to hear like what exactly is kind of happening on Wednesday. And obviously we want to find ways to open it up for them. So I just really like that part, and I wanted to summarize, kind of say. So thanks.
Yeah, it's always great to hear from the teachers. I believe Nikki Hauer is, I almost said Marlboro, but then it occurred to me now.
Yes, I'm at the 4-5 Center now. Thanks, Mrs. McGinnis, so much for inviting us here today. I know you guys hear from the parents often, so it's really nice that you also want to hear some of the feedback from the teachers as well regarding these Wednesdays. In the elementary school, so important. In fact, I'm not sure how our hybrid program would work without it, especially in the elementary school. Kind of to touch on what Dr. Drake said, we are working in either groups of 3, or in my case, since we are departmentalized at the 4-5 Center, I'm actually working in a group of 6. We share students with virtual teachers. So we are not teaching simultaneously. When my gold group or my blue group is coming into the building, my entire focus are on the students that are in front of me. I am not trying to Zoom with Zoomers, as Christian said, at the same time. Those students, though, that are virtual on those days are learning the exact same lesson that I'm teaching in the building with a different teacher on the computer. So that collaboration time in the elementary school is vital, because not only do we need to make sure that we are teaching the same lesson on the same day, and you have to be very careful that you're not falling behind or getting too far ahead, because come Tuesday, I know that those students are then going to a different teacher on Thursday and Friday to learn virtually. So I need to make sure that they've learned everything that they needed to, so that when they're going to, in my case, it's Mrs. Popadak, that Mrs. Popadak can pick up, right where I left off. Additionally, that time, especially in the mornings, spent with our hybrid team, not necessarily our department teams, meaning our math or ELA, that's kind of spent more in the afternoon. But when I say our hybrid team, that's where we're really spending time talking about the individual students. What students are struggling with the concept that we need to try to catch up in one area or the other, what students might need enrichment. And that time on Wednesdays is where we really get the chance to be able to do that. Again, we're sharing students among 6 different teachers. Our virtual teachers have not only mine and my partner's kids to be teaching virtually, but also a whole other pair of face-to-face teachers. So, I mean, I truly don't know how we would be able to successfully implement this hybrid program like we have without that time on Wednesdays. It's really vital. Just, to make sure that the kids are getting what they need. Since sometimes they're coming to me on Monday and, you haven't seen them for almost a week. They're learning, but it's just from somebody else. So, it's definitely important to make sure that you're constantly touching base with the other teachers that are teaching your kids when they're not in front of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hauer.
You're welcome.
Let's see, there was is it Alicia Austin? Am I saying that correct? Alicia? Is she still here?
Yeah.
Great. I'm sorry, I apologize.
I'm from the high school. It's completely okay. Happens very frequently. So I'm from the high school, and as you've heard, our schedule isn't speak to what we are doing and what that time looks like at the high school. So we do have our regular class periods. It's sectioned off that each class essentially has an hour of time. We don't have to call the kids in for a class. However, I teach AP Language and Composition. My husband teaches AP Bio. AP teachers have the discretion to call students in for our AP classes because that test is happening in May. I don't think any of us are opting for the June selection, and there is content that needs to be gone through before we get to that high stakes testing for those students. So a lot of us are continuing on and calling classes on Wednesday. So that would be on an every other week schedule because we have every other day classes. At this point, we don't typically call full student classes in. We're using it for remediation. So I have students who didn't finish a project, students who need help with writing an essay, students who missed a class who don't want to sit through 80 minutes of watching the video of their classes because they were out that day when it's just easier to meet with the teacher. We have students who need the tutoring and extra help in certain subjects. Writing workshops are big for my AP students because it is a college writing course. Have that extra class time to meet. We also have just, I would say, different social aspects of meeting with students. I know some students just want to check in because they need somebody to talk to that isn't in their immediate family and they're virtual all the time. So they want another person to talk to. So sometimes we do small groups in that realm. There's also students who are coming in for additional help, like help with their letters of recommendation or applying to certain colleges, or the normal things that you'd have students check in for where they don't have time during the regular day. So they might not be in your current class, but they're stopping in because they have particular questions that they need answered. This time is critical for our VOTEC students because we no longer have an intervention time built into the day. We have an IE every day for a half hour, but that is when their buses are transitioning. So that is often the only time that we will be able to talk to those kids one-on-one. I also meet with most of my IEP students, and they're checking in with their caseload managers. A lot of this is for executive functioning. Sometimes they might be caught up on all of their work, but just making sure that they're organized and they know what they need to do for the week. So our mornings up until 11 o'clock are spent with our students. Some weeks we have more, some weeks we have less, but I keep a little log of everybody who's coming, and then I can check out with their parents if they don't attend. Our afternoons are faculty meetings, department meetings. Just like at the middle school, I teach 3 different classes. I teach musical theater, 11th grade AP, and 9th grade academic English. And I have different partners for all of those classes. So meeting up with those people, getting ready for the Keystone Prep, IEP meetings, SAT meetings, different committee meetings, also getting ready for SESS, and then putting out all of our data into Linkit. We are super busy in the afternoon of collaborating and making sure we are getting all the planning done, because a lot of our content, if you think for a science class, a lot of it was labs. And now we've converted over where we are teaching to a virtual kid as well as in the classroom. So a lot of our materials need to be adapted to accommodate both at the same time.
Thank you. And I can attest that I have a daughter at the high school and she has 3 AP classes, and she usually has at least 1 class on Wednesday. I know the AP classes are definitely meeting on Wednesday. She doesn't have all 3 of them, but you know, she usually has at least 1 of them every Wednesday morning. So She loves it, I can tell you. So, and just to round it out, because I saw that Mrs. Salmon said that she could give a kindergarten perspective, since kindergarten is in 4 days a week, but they're half days, I believe, correct? Would be kind of cool since she's here and willing to say. Why don't we just hear a little bit from her?
Thank you, Mrs. McGinnis. And I swear I have lights on in my living room. It appears that I'm in the dark. So I apologize. I am here. Hope you can see me. I actually had my husband go turn another light on. Anyway, so yep, in kindergarten, we are live 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but we also have one UPOLA class. And in kindergarten, what has happened is two things. First of all, if a student needs to quarantine, there is not the other virtual teacher for them to go with where they seamlessly continue with their same teachers. They go only to the UPOLA class. So it is vastly important that our planning time remains common because we plan together as a kindergarten team so that when a student needs to quarantine, which will happen tomorrow, I'm the UPOLA teacher and I'm getting a student from one of the other kindergarten classrooms, that student will pick up exactly where they are because we are all teaching the same content on the same day and our delivery is similar. We of course are 4 different human beings, so our delivery is always slightly different, but our content and our tools are the same. So in kindergarten, when that quarantine thing needs to happen, it's a little bit different than in the other grade levels where they just stay with their virtual teacher instead of coming live. They change teachers in kindergarten. So that common planning time is paramount to the seamlessness of that child's education. The other thing that is very important about Wednesdays with the intervention time or that one-on-one time is for the first year in many, many years, we do not have full day kindergarten. So our kids that would have been full day kindergarten, which were typically the children who were a little bit more at risk academically and needed more time in the day, they are now in the rigor of half day kindergarten. So those students need extra one-on-one time or 2-on-1, just super, super small group or one-on-one time, which we can then provide for them on Wednesday mornings. So that's what our morning will be chunked up. And then our afternoons, of course, is our planning time and our PLC time to plan together. So as everything always looks a little different in kindergarten, so does this planning with having not a virtual teammate. They actually are changing teacher to someone who they've not had before. So given that their educational plan is seamless, even though they're changing teachers because of the Wednesday planning time that we have. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically the lesson learned there is that this is an extremely complicated process. We looked at 4 different buildings, 4 different processes, 4 different ways that we're teaching. So I'm going to let the rest of the board members ask some questions first. Hopefully, maybe you guys already answered them, but let's start with board members. So do I see any hands? Mr. Drake, Dr. Drake.
Okay, I just want to see if I understand maybe the problem statement. So one is that there's a lot of time needed for planning to coordinate with the triads. But the other side of the coin is the parents believe that more time is needed for one-to-one work with the students. Is that?
I think that's a pretty perfect definition is that, you know, when we switched to the hybrid, when everybody was virtual, Wednesday was, I think, a lot more intervention related. And the teachers had more time for it. But now that it's hybrid, the parents have stated that they feel like, I have parents here, so I will open it up to them and let them tell. I don't want to speak. My understanding is that they feel like those Wednesdays have kind of become, for lack of a better word, that I think I heard one of them say they felt like their child was being ignored on Wednesdays. And clearly it's not that they're being ignored. Clearly the teachers are saying that, you know, that they're working very hard on it. It's just, how do you balance having the kids come in virtually with the teachers with their need to collaborate with their coworkers? And I don't know the answer to that. That's well beyond me. I'm hoping that that's what people can figure out here through talking and ideas. So I think you worded the question perfectly. It's how do you balance the needs of the virtual kids who used to use that Wednesday for some makeup, or just, you know, extra time with the teacher, with the needs of the teachers to collaborate with their coworkers. Sound pretty right to you?
Yeah, so then if that's the problem statement, then it sounds like the solution is more times needed for the, you know, to do both, or perhaps one thing might, go
A
ahead.
48-hour Wednesday.
Well, that's not really practical, but so that's one. And the other is, you know, with all the coordinations with triads, is that more prevalent now that we're in hybrid? Like, because I know at one time we were talking about having the same teacher for virtual and hybrid together, at least for some grades, but now they're
I
switching
think,
back and
yeah,
forth.
I think you heard from the middle school and high school teachers who aren't using that model that the time to collaborate and plan is just as important, even though the learning model is a little bit different. So I think that through our conversations this past week with the administrative team, who were reaching out to some teachers, and so we did get some feedback that way as well. I think that the hour that we have inserted K-8 does not rob the teachers of too much time. That couldn't be an opening balance, and then keeping track of how many students are trying to be seen, how many students are being seen. You know, I think that an hour is very doable in that day. And so I think that's where we landed in terms of a solution. I know that's where we landed with some conversations with the administrative team, and the logs of what's happening on a Wednesday will help us with that. Nothing's changing at the high school. They're doing what they've always done. So that looks exactly the same. What's changing is K-8 is inserting an hour that we stole a couple minutes here and there from some different things to make that happen.
And
So
just a
that's
final,
already gone into, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Drake. I just wanted to follow up that question because so that's already gone into.
We hope to have it this Wednesday. So principals were communicating with their staff. It was either going to be today with the snow. It might have got pushed off until tomorrow. So we're always sensitive about that time, but we plan to implement that this Wednesday, the 24th, and start to see how that works.
And what exactly is that again?
It's a 1 hour intervention time, and the teachers and the principals will be communicating that specific time by building. Again, nothing at the high school changes. The high school is exactly the same. K-8 now has inserted an hour for intervention for kids who need help.
okay. And then I guess my last question before, you know, I don't want to take all the time, but for that hour, how many children do you usually see or you expect to see? Because I mean, if it's more than 5 or 10 children, you don't really only have a few minutes for each one.
Yeah. And that's why we're keeping the logs, Dr. Drake. We truly don't know. You know, we won't know until we start to build it out. Again, in some instances, the teacher will be saying, you need to come see me. And we do feel like that's been going on. In other instances, the student will be requesting time on a Wednesday. And so we're going to use those logs to help us take a look at that and decide, do we need more time? Can we scale this back or look at it another way? I have no principals want to predict. I don't have any guess about that.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for informing me and us.
Dr. Drake, did you have any other questions? Because you haven't taken up much time.
No, well, not really a question, but just maybe one other comment is I have heard of teachers helping with some of their students in terms of doing it after hours. So having the dedicated time during regular hours, I think is a good thing. But I do know almost every teacher I know or ever met usually goes above and beyond to try to help the students. I don't want that to be our rule, right? That people work 12 hours a day because we don't have a good system. But I realize it's an unprecedented time. So try to do the best we could do.
Good point.
Thank you, Dr. Drake. Ms. Pennypacker, I see your hand up.
I'll ask the dreaded, does anyone foresee any contract issues for any teachers who might not get prep time or anything else?
Dr. Farina, you want to take that?
The answer is no, I don't believe so. but Dr. Roach can weigh in. I know that principals are working with their respective buildings, but it not necessarily around planning time, but potentially about substitute coverage. And so those conversations are being had. I know the task force has talked about some of those. Some of the union leadership has engaged in conversation, but building principals are working with their administrators. And to date, I personally, and Dr. Roach, if you have different information, have not been informed of that concern from any building principal.
Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Pennypacker, for the question. And we have had a couple conversations with UPA leadership as we're working on that considerations document that I did share with the board and is now out to the teachers as well to provide support for anyone that is positive and with COVID or professional or a regular quarantine. Any rate, I believe are helping us stay open in general, to be able to clean the slate, to provide our cleaning, provide our contact tracing for cases that are there. But to more specifically answer your question, I do believe there is time contractually on the Wednesdays, as Mr. Detweiler is on here as well. I know I've spoken specifically with him and Mr. LaSalle, that if there was a situation, as Dr. Farina referred to, as needing additional coverages throughout the time of the open periods that are in the schedule to cover beyond what's contractual, we can get that cleaned up with release time on the following Wednesday if needed, which again keeps the buildings open and covered, all at the same time still striving to have regular substitutes in and have those classes covered. That's not the ideal situation, but it does keep those classes moving forward. And that's not just an upper perk issue, that's across the board. So I do believe the amount of time is in there. I do not believe we've had to utilize that, if at all, very minimal, outside of exceeding what's in there on the prep/coverage time in the contract. I feel confident that having those Wednesdays does provide that time to make that time up very quickly on a Wednesday afternoon if needed, beyond what's contractual in terms of that.
Yeah, the good news is we heard there haven't been a ton of coverages that are leading to time being need to be made up. So we're thankful for that. The other thing I will mention, just because I think it fits, is when we first started back in the beginning of the school year, we had a position called the Connections Coordinator, and it was a strategic position to help kids feel engaged. And so we had that K through 8, mostly 9 to 12. They had a lot of connections, so we kind of had someone behind the scenes. But when we went to hybrid on January 19th, because the teachers who were doing that needed to go teach in the building, we stopped with the Connections Coordinator role. And I feel like that may be some of what the students and potentially the parents are feeling. They did get a weekly email. They did get a "you can do this" email. They did get a list of things that were going on weekly. And though we don't have the manpower to bring that back, I did want to say what a super amazing job they did, because I think that may be part of what's missed now that we're in the hybrid. No one intentionally did anything, but you start to repurpose out of necessity, and certain things aren't the way they began. And so kudos to all of those who were doing that in a way that I do believe they're really missed now that we're in a different instructional model again. That was just something that occurred to us as we talked this week.
If that is the case, it just shows the impact that those teachers did have when that was repurposed and heading through that tough, again, coming out of last March through June and then into the new virtual, that piece is there.
Yeah. Mrs. Pennypacker, do you have any other questions?
Not right now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hipser?
No, I think this has been extremely informative.
Mr. Elliott?
Thank you. I think what Mrs. Bass just said is a very important point, and it gets back to communication. And one of the things I think we've heard a lot of good feedback about is the emails that Dr. Roche sends out. Right, there's a lot of information there. You can find what you need, and it was really nice to have that person that was that touch point. Like, I remember getting emails. Just because there was a couple times, I think Luke Verna was doing it for Quinn's group. And it was awesome because every now and then, hey, I'm on the school board and I still would have a question from time to time. And I'm like, hey, Luke, great email, by the way. And he'd be like, oh, this, just because maybe I was curious about something or something came up. So you can't, that idea of having that coordinator, that communication person, I think is so key, because think about tonight, what we heard from the teachers, you know, and I loved hearing about all the work that's going on behind the scenes that they're doing. I mean, we're asking a lot of our teachers. They're certainly more than rising to the occasion. And you're hearing like, you know, hey, this is what we're doing on Wednesday. And you're hearing all that filler stuff, which I think then as a parent, I'm like, okay, I get it. I still want some more communication, but I understand what you're doing. So it kind of like all kind of fits and makes sense. And that gets back to the idea behind this meeting. And one of the things we got to work on, which is the communication for this, because we do want this program to be successful. So within that regard, I know that obviously we don't have the manpower, which is a shame. I don't know if there's any way we could look into that, or if the board could do something to help you out with that. I would certainly be willing to listen as a member of the board to any sort of suggestion that might be within regards to that, to increasing communication. And whether it's, you know, there's a one-stop pop shop on the website or whatever, if there is one, isn't one already, or there is one, just anything that we can fill in those communication gaps, I think would be really important. So do you think, is there, Mrs. Bass, in regards to that, what's the best spot on our website to go to get information if I'm a fully virtual parent? I know it's all over the place.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the, you know, I went to look too. I was on a call and I was like, let me just see if I can find this. And because there's so many different places to go, you know, I feel like centralizing that was on our action plan, Mr. Elliott, was to really say, okay, by building, let's look on a weekly basis of what's going on. And then I feel like maybe we build something on the website that says, what's up at Marlboro, what's up at Hereford, what's up at 4-5. And then you kind of have that, some things that may be long running. And then there's some things that would be happening on a weekly basis. Please know, as soon as I hang up, I'm going to get texts. We send stuff home every day. Teachers do.
I'm sure they do. I know. They do. But
I'm getting. And I don't disagree. I just think you're like me, that one-stop shop. So as much as they may hear it 10 times, if we can go to this one document that says, well, what's up at Hereford, and see it there, I don't disagree with you. So we're building those to try to find a place to kind of highlight that and have one-stop shopping. Because I think like me, I like to go to one place and
yeah, just even if it's like links to other pages. And I don't know if you want to reach out to Nikki about that. And if somehow she can help coordinate. I know that she does some other things too, but as our communications director, that would be nice to have. You know, she could probably, you know, whip snap something together pretty good.
So you want the Amazon of communication.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, just something to start would be good, you know.
Yeah. And it's there. I know it's there, but we'll work on getting it a little bit closer to, you know,
tighten it up.
one. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
If I could,
everybody's sending stuff out, but just
yeah. If I could also just add, if there's questions, the best place to go is first to the teacher, next to the assistant principal or principal. I mean, that's really the best place to get to some of that. Not that we don't want the board to hear some of these things, but that's really sometimes the best place to start, which can be frustrating if you don't get back, or, you know, looking for emails and all that kind of stuff. So there's just a balance of all of that at one time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Agreed. That was what I had.
All right, well, Mr. Elliott, if you think of anything else, we'll come back to you. But in the meantime, I just want to check in with Mrs. Cunningham. You good, or you want to talk?
I just wanted to say that after hearing all of what happens on Wednesday, wow, you guys are doing a great job, and there's a lot of coordination, and I'm glad that you're taking the time to do that, because the students really need it, and it's hard for everyone. This is different, so thank you.
I'm going to piggyback off that and say I really appreciate you taking your Monday night, the teachers that have come here to explain it to us. It's very helpful to hear just how complicated all this is, you know, for Dr. Roche and Dr. Farina and everyone to try and run a virtual school and a hybrid school, and then for you guys to try to teach a hybrid school and a virtual school. It's so complicated, and it's good to hear from you, just, you know, in your own words, just how Not that we didn't already know how hard you were working, but just how hard those Wednesdays are. I mean, just that alone, let alone teaching Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we also have one more board member, I believe, on the call, Mr. McCarrick. So I just want to give him a chance to see if he.
Yes, thank you, Judy. And I'd like to echo what you and Melanie said about the Wednesdays and everything. And that's really where my question is. Before we went to hybrid, did you have, did all of our personnel, our teachers, our guidance counselors, our administration, did you have that many issues with trying to get the communication between the respective team members completed? You know, Mr. Folk said that he spends all day Wednesday, you know, having conversations. Is a lot of the lag now, or a lot of the time consuming work trying to keep up with the technology and coordinating everything? What if we went back to, once we go back, let's put it that way, once we go back to full-time instruction, will some of these issues with communication go away? I know the emails and things like that will go away, but as far as getting coordinated with our special ed students, with all the students that need extra help?
So I think I'll answer it in, I guess, two ways. I think I understand your question. First, I just want to say also, I think there's not a teacher out there that does not want to help kids, right? And you know, we understand that if Wednesdays that has to happen, what the main purpose, especially for many of us that came today, was just to inform the board and the public like what those Wednesdays look like. And so I'm glad we had the opportunity to put that out there. I know, and I think, you know, it was, you know, somebody said like we stole a few minutes from here and there on Wednesdays, and I know for myself, like, where'd you steal it from? Because there's a lot going on. You know, I kind of teased Mrs. Siegfried, like, we can just not have faculty meetings anymore. How about that? And, you know, and so, to answer your question, Mr. McCarrick, I think, so for example, if I'm understanding it right, is there's 2 points going on. One is the communication with students who are struggling and trying to get them assistance. And the other one maybe is the communication between and collaboration between staff members. And I can only speak especially for the middle school. When we return, or before COVID, so for example, when I would, now I work with Mr. Staniak, who teaches in 6th and 7th grade, like, well, we don't have a common planning time. So that collaboration would cease to exist. We're just not able to do it during the day. I teach on a 7th and an 8th grade team. I plan though, my planning period times with the 8th grade team. So I would not be able to collaborate and meet with the 7th grade team for their team meetings, nor would I be able to collaborate and meet with them during their SST, which is the time set aside to identify those students who are struggling and the techniques and the methods and all the interventions we can do. So those meetings for me become an email I might get. I don't really have the, you know, the one-on-one meeting in a room like we all used to do, right? Or a Zoom room to discuss those students. So those meetings for me kind of, they stop because it's not within the day. It's not within the time period when I have a common planning period. So those kinds of things will stop if you know, when we get back into the traditional, I'd say, concept there of our meetings. In terms of with students, if I'm understanding it correctly, you know, going back to full time in virtually, that's going to be difficult, I would think, you know, because again, at the middle school model, we still have that 30 minutes. Like so I see science and social studies split the A/B schedule. So I see my kids twice a week. So for an hour, all those virtual kids, I have intervention time with them, you know, 30 minutes for each class period, the 2 days a week. I don't know, to me, I don't know how much more, you know, like I can get that one-on-one and the virtual time that's there, that's a significant amount of time to check in and see what they're doing, because not every child, if I have 25, 28 kids there, not every child needs that 30 minutes. It can really just be kind of all right, let's get us started. What are we struggling with here? And many times if one person is struggling with, like we always say, if you have a question, 3 other people have a question as well. And kind of the small groups that kind of happen there within that. So, you know, I'm kind of just going back and forth in terms of this Wednesday, if it's an hour necessary to really try to get some of those kids are really, really struggling and not able to meet their needs during that 30 minutes. Like, I understand that, and that's fine. If we go back to whatever our normal is going to be, usually that, and they stay virtual, I'm not sure how that would be addressed. And that's a question I don't have enough information really to kind of give you an answer. I'd hate to say something that I don't know if it's going to happen one way or the other. Does that help?
Yes, it does help some. Hopefully when we go back to full-time in person for everybody, you know, a lot of these issues, we hopefully will go away. And we do thank you for everything that everyone is doing, from the administration all the way through down to the teachers, to our custodians who are taking care of our buildings and helping take care of us. Thank you.
So I see Jean's iPad with his hand up. I don't know who Jean is, but go ahead.
I am just a lowly grandfather
Never say just.
that has a question and a comment. I've lived in the Upper Perkiomen Valley quite a while. 4 kids, 2 grandchildren, and 2 more coming into the system. So I have a very vested interest in our district. So I have 1 question and I have 1 comment, and I believe I'm in the right place from a curriculum standpoint to ask the question. It was very interesting. President Biden, one of the first things that he did is he wrote an executive order to trash the 1776 commission. And I said, what the heck is that? So because he trashed it, I looked it up. And it was about our civics education in K through 12, in essence, and with recommendations about how we can be more effective at teaching civics. And I was just interested on where we are in Upper Perk teaching civics. I don't know. I have no idea. So that's my question. Where are we with our curriculum on civics?
Great question. And I'll answer it hopefully clearly. Sometimes curriculum people aren't clear. When we look at the social studies standards in Pennsylvania, there's 4 different standards. One of them is civics and government, 1 is economics, 1 is history, US and Pennsylvania, and 1 is world history. There's also some map skills and things like that that are in the standard strands. So in every grade level, there are both civics and government strands to be addressed. And so when we do our curriculum writing K to 12 with that vertical articulation, we're very clear about where we're hitting civics and government. And as you can likely imagine, areas where we cover the American Revolution, it's much more heavily focused on our founding documents and civics and government. And so though he might have trashed that one, and honestly, I'm sorry, but I didn't hear much about that, but there is an act, I believe it's 158, that requires civics education be taught, and it requires a mandatory civics exam, which we have chosen to give in 8th grade. And so all of our students will take a civics exam. They were saying you could copy the citizenship exam for the United States, or you could create your own. And so there were a group of teachers who worked, and then I got in with the process this year a little bit. This is the first year they're mandating that test be given, and we're giving it in the month of May in the middle school and 8th grade to all our 8th graders. So your answer is civics is taught in every grade level, certainly where history allows itself a little bit more. We go into a little bit more detail. There's a specific civics and government class at the high school as well for students who would like to choose that.
Thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
I would challenge the board to get more involved with understand the administration to look a little deeper into our civics education program. And I would definitely, after reading the 1776 Commission report, it really intrigued me, and I would recommend that to the board to take a look at, because there's really good information there that can help, I think, guide us in how our civics education takes place. All right, so that was my question, Kimberly, and I appreciate your answer. My observation in this, guys, you got to go back to school. You got to go back to school. You're wasting intellect. The CDC, if you follow the science, says go back to school. And all this intellect is getting wasted on trying to come up with all these different programs. And you guys are smart. You're smart. Teachers are smart. Administrators are smart. So it's time to go back. Go back, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to, because we have other things to discuss, I want to loop back and kind of close out this conversation with regards to our hybrid, fully hybrid parents and stuff. And I know I saw somebody at one point put a comment in the chat. It was a parent that I think wanted to speak. Hang on one second. Let me. Jennifer Moran. Do you want to comment, I assume?
Yes, please.
Sure, go right ahead.
So, for speaking for myself, I totally appreciate everything that the teachers have been doing. For the Wednesdays, me personally in my home, like we're doing okay with Wednesdays. Okay, like I'm not complaining about taking up all the day on a Wednesday. However, I have once virtual who's now UPOLA, and I have 2 more virtuals. So I have 3 different kids in 3 different schools. And, I did talk to Dr. Farina about the fact of you can't just make one blanket statement, like when it comes to the Wednesdays, because honestly, each school and even the UPOLA are very, very different. So there are some things like, the high school, you know what, honestly, I haven't had any issues with that. So you can't just take the blanket statement. And I think that's for teachers as well, because, I've seen and I've heard some of the teachers, I feel horrible for them actually, because some of them, I see them going to 50 million meetings. They're not only being a teacher, they're being a secretary. They're like, their plates are so full, so full. As a parent, I want that recognized, like their plates are full. I am certainly not trying to add to it. But it is very different for kids in the just stayed virtual. They are not blue or gold, they're just virtual. So they don't get that FaceTime as much. I don't believe all Wednesdays should be dedicated to it, my personal opinion. I just think that there are some areas that could be tweaked with it. And honestly, like, I think that there just needs to be even that much more of a communication between administrators, teachers, staff, kids, but also the parents that, I have to be principal in my school at home. I want to work with you guys with that. So that I just think that if there is a way, like a coordinator, like, yes, there used to be a person, if there can be a liaison that kind of works between the two. So the ones that are just virtual, the ones that are just UPOLA, you guys aren't going to know if there's a problem unless we tell you, right? So, I'm trying to do it as nice as I can. I'm sorry if it doesn't come out that way, but I'm not trying to hone in on the problems. I want to be part of a solution.
Thank you, Jen. All right, so I'm going to scan real quick. It's going to take me a while because we have a couple pages here.
I do see a hand up.
Great, if you see it, call it
Allison
out.
Terrio. Allison, did you want to talk? And that's the only thing I see, Judy, then.
Great.
Hi. Hi, thank you for letting me talk. I'll put my hand down later. I don't know how to do it yet. But my name's Allison Terrio. I have 2 daughters in the UPOLA program. I have a 2nd grader in Marlboro and a 4th grader. And everything's been going well with us for the UPOLA program. That's why we also decided to stay with it. Their schedules are good. Their classes are great. They participate. I feel like they're getting challenged. Everything's going well. As far as like the Wednesday goes, I know like for them, I'm sure they say it's great because, they have their morning meeting. They're there. They're told what to do for the, their independent time. They do a couple of their assignments and then they're like, yay, we're done, half a day, no big deal. What we do miss though, I believe, is the live gym classes, and we had the live SEL that my girls went to every week. So I think just like having that teacher interaction besides, just their normal teachers that they have. It was something different to look forward to. I know for the specials, we're switching them. I think every month there'll be a new special. So right now my second grader has gym as her special. So she's kind of like, well, this isn't fun. I have to do these things on my own where I used to have the teacher do it with me, So I feel like specials wise, they're connect with, just that excitement of having a special. Usually it's just a watch this quick video, answer this form, you're done kind of thing. So I don't know if it was possible, and I know, not even just on a Wednesday, but maybe one of those half-hour times, or possibly even just like once every couple of weeks to just have one of their special classes for that month be a live session. So they have a little bit of that interaction. I know they both had, the regular teachers were out one day and a specials teacher subbed for them, and they loved being able to see their teachers. So just a suggestion for that. Another thing that I just wanted to quick mention was just making sure the UPOLA kids do still feel part of the school. And that, I know Valentine's Day happened, and I'm fortunate enough to be part of the PTFS at Marlboro. So I hear a lot of the different activities that are going on. With them having Valentine's Day parties, I suggested, well, hey, can we do something fun for the UPOLA kids? So PTFS got crafts for everyone at Marlboro, the UPOLA kids, that they were then able to do with their teacher. Everyone had a craft, and it was just a fun little thing. So just to not forget about them when there is some sort of school event going on, to just make sure that they're also included in that. And then just my last thing, I just wanted to say thank you for making Picture Day seamless for UPOLA kids. It's been wonderful so far. I just had my Marlboro student do it. I know 4-5 is coming up in a couple of weeks, but again, that was very seamless to sign up to and be flexible with us being able to pick what time we can come bring our children in to get their pictures taken for school. So I appreciate that. Thank you. That's everything I have.
Thank you very much. It's always great to hear from the parents and the parents' ideas. So I saw in the chat box that Mary doesn't know how to raise her hand, or she doesn't have the button or something. So go ahead, Mary.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I first wanted to say, Mrs. Bast, I think it's a great idea for the one-stop shop that you were saying, because, I know not everybody has almost a baseball team like I do in the school district, and sometimes we don't just get daily, weekly emails, we get multiple daily emails. So to kind of have to remember, where did I see that email? Who was it from? Would probably also be helpful just to navigate that. But I can give a different perspective from most of the levels, and the elementary level for my kindergartner and first grader is great. Mrs. Mackey, you're wonderful. And I will tell you, it has been just a little bit of a struggle, and it's not anybody's fault. Going back to the hybrid with my first grader, I agree, do need to get back or have that option of the 4-day, because it's more of a struggle to get him to work now on his virtual days because he's so excited to be there in person. So prior to hybrid, I really didn't have to argue with him too much to do anything. And now sometimes that is a little bit of a struggle, but for the most part, it has really been a very good transition. The 2 teachers I have for him are great. And my kindergarten teacher is great. I know her counterpartners here. But Mrs. Lindemuth is great. I love that they can go back 4 days a week. It's been just seeing my kindergartner in just the month we've been back and where he was and where he's grown has been tremendous. So it is just to show that they do need to be in there, and having that 4 days a week is great. I was just wondering about the middle school. I know we're talking about having that targeted support time and implementing maybe an hour on Wednesdays. And I don't know if that'd be good for the teachers. Just from hearing, I already knew, but hearing some of them talk tonight, they really need that time. What about implementing back that targeted support time we had before and after school? I know my daughter, who's in 7th grade, has a 504, and we had implemented, because she was struggling not being in school, that it was mandatory that she attend targeted support, because having that smaller group of the kids in that target time and not her whole class helped her tremendously. And now that we've gone hybrid, and she's only there 2 days a week, she's backsliding. Not having that, being able to go, okay, today is Monday, I know I go to ELA, tomorrow I go to, you know, and she had that extra half an hour, 45 minutes on top of class time as well. So that was extremely helpful. Taking that away has hurt.
And we can look at those schedules again. We absolutely can do that. I don't think that taking just 1 hour on Wednesday will be too much of a difficulty. And I think we'd like to try that because I think it's one more day additionally, right? So rather than just combining it on another day, there's a Wednesday where I have a fresh day in front of me. Maybe something clicks in my head and I can continue to do that work. But I so appreciate your comments and hearing from you and Mrs. Terrio's good ideas and Mrs. Moran's good ideas.
My daughter gets frustrated with the virtual days and not to the teacher's fault, the lack of quickness, you know, of getting that response in the chat. And she's always coming, you know, and says, it's so much better when I'm there. I can raise my hand and they see me right away and they can answer me right away and not having that. And Wednesday, I don't understand the Wednesday still attendance for the middle school. I love having that morning meeting, a little bit of time with elementary. My high schooler gets on, does her few minutes of whatever she has to do and has the day to do stuff. But that Imagine Math and my son's math teacher, I saw her on here, she could attest, it is a struggle to get him to do it because it's not what he does. So he fights me constantly. I don't understand this. Why do I have to, blah, blah, blah. And I'd rather just focus on getting him to do the work he's not doing in his regular class than worry about that Imagine Math and did you do it? Did you do it? Did you do it? And why, you know, we can't, be nice to have just some asynchronous work for them to do as well, like we do for elementary, and maybe have a 10-minute homeroom. Here's your attendance. We're done, you know. But I mean, it's cool.
And yeah. And we're looking at Imagine Math, Mrs. Cannon, because we really want to make sure that it's the right pathway for kids. If it's not, and they don't want to be on it, you know, we learned the other day how to do multiple pathways. And so as we're continuing to do that work, that's a potential option. And as always, we recommend start at the teacher level. You know, can we at least look at a different pathway?
It's more of the struggle, the lessons, having to pass the lessons, you know, what I mean? Being made to do that. And I guess I didn't realize until recently what he was doing, and he asked for help finally. And I just went, oh, no, nope, can't do it.
Well, and Imagine Math has live help, live teachers. I've used it. It's like the greatest thing. So just, you know, and we're happy to help you kind of work out those. He'll get a live teacher on the spot once he's tried the problem. You know, the option comes up for live teachers. So
I can tell you, he's a special.
Mrs. McGinnis, but I just wanted to on those two things. So I'll be quiet now, but I so appreciate what you're saying, and that's not the first we've heard of Imagine Math. So again, we got additional
because it's so different than it is for the younger elementary, and it doesn't seem like it. If it coordinated with what they're being taught in school, I think would be so much better, giving that little bit of extra help with that. And I think it sometimes gets confusing.
That's what we can change right now. That when I say a different pathway, that's what I mean. We might be able to align it with what's going on right now. So those are some options. And if whoever that math teacher is that's on the call,
Mrs. Buslitz, she does great. We
Lisa, hit me up in email tomorrow.
I mean, he's doing way better on the 2 days he goes to school. It's just the 2 days he doesn't go to school. And I'm sure she could probably say exactly because 2 days he doesn't go. But I really do appreciate everything everybody's doing and being open to hearing the parents and some of the things we see and the teachers. I think it's going to be helpful to keep moving forward.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to bring up, Mrs. Fox wanted to make sure, I don't know if you all saw it in the chat, that everybody, she wants to make sure that everybody knows that the students are getting their SEL, and SEL is social and emotional learning, in case you don't know what SEL is. They are getting their SEL lessons from the classroom teacher when they're in the building. So she just wanted to make sure that you all knew that the SEL teaching hasn't gone away. It's just that they're not getting it virtually now. They're getting it in the classroom. Was that correct, Mrs. Fox?
Yes. I mean, I know in third grade at Marlboro, I know that our Eucola teacher does it. I don't know how that worked for the other grade levels. If they're all doing it, I would assume they are, but I just wanted to make sure, like, I know because Mrs. Terrio had mentioned that they used to get the SEL lessons on Wednesdays. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that those weren't gone completely. They're just gone from Wednesday, and we teach them in the building for at least at Marlboro.
And Mrs. Shetler said kindergarten gets it live on Wednesday with their counselor. Thank you, Mrs. Shetler, the guidance counselor or school counselor at Marlboro. So we,
McGinnis, 4-5 is also receiving the SEL lessons from their classroom teachers.
well, there we go. So
Oh, you at mute.
Same with
Hey,
her.
Mrs. Cunningham, I hope you're listening to this. This is like I won't say Chinese fire drill, but it is. It is just craziness how difficult this whole process is becoming at the expense of our kids. It really is.
I hear you. I know I'd like them all to be back in too. I think every single person on this
Get them
call would.
back, and 90% of these problems would go away with good teachers and good administration. So I'll get off my horse, but I absolutely believe the kids need to be back in school full time to benefit from our great teachers. So,
well, let's encourage all of our colleagues and coworkers to wear masks and social distance so we could get back as
without
soon as possible.
as soon as we can get them all back in safely, we
can
will.
be smart, doctor. Mask, social distance. We've got plenty of room in all the schools.
We do not have plenty of room, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I hate to call you Gene because I don't know you. What is your last name, sir?
Dolph. But you can
Dolph?
call me Gene.
Oh, well, okay. Well, since you gave me permission. That is, of course, the big crux is to do the social distancing. We can't have all the students in right now. So
But we can. We've got cafeterias, we've got auditoriums, we've got all kinds of spaces. These kids are suffering. I know that firsthand.
I
So I absolutely believe we have got to go back. And there's no reason we can't go back if the school board would say, we're going back, and the union leadership would say, okay, we're going back. Teachers want to come back. Vast majority of them want to. Let's go back and fix all of these issues by not having face-to-face instruction. And I'm done. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, take control of this at the end of a long meeting, but I do appreciate you hearing my thoughts on civics. So take care, everyone.
Please don't apologize for speaking at the meeting. That's what they're here for. So, but we are going to move on because I did not see anybody else with any hands up, and we do have several more items on the agenda.
Judy, can I just ask one question? And it's probably, I hope it's just a yes or no.
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Drake.
For our curriculum review cycles, right, which we go back to the curriculum committee, will we have, as part of that evaluation and the writing process, is there an extra criteria now for a virtual component with, the full in-person component? Is that anything we need to think about, or is that already built in to the majority of curriculums even before COVID?
It was being built in. I mean, it was something that Dr. Farina and Mrs. Stevens had worked on. What the curriculum doesn't necessarily change, Dr. Drake. It's how we might deliver it virtually. So that is really a part of what we do when we set. And certainly now all our curriculum are ready to go online.
Yeah, I probably meant more like the textbook or the electronic textbook or whatever the materials are.
Yeah, most of the things we buy now are hybrid. So there's always that online component, but we also have some hard copies in the classroom. So I don't think we've had any difficulties not having an online resource. That's been how purchasing has happened in my experience here, and certainly going back a few years, Dr. Farina, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Dr. Drake, there are multiple facets to the virtual program. Personnel is obviously one of them. We contractually, we agreed that we would not displace face-to-face teachers to offer virtual programming or afford our teachers the opportunity to do so. So we would have to take a look at the requests by level and what that would look like in order to facilitate a K-12 virtual program seamlessly moving forward.
I'm just thinking like worst case, if the South African variants or any of these other things come back and we have to slip in and out of virtual hybrid, you know, is that sort of a new criteria that we have? Or
yeah, I mean, I think we're pretty poised. I would have to say the teachers did it in emergency in March, and I think it's done much more thoughtfully now. Certainly they have worked this year to develop that type of instruction. So if we had to replicate it by grade level and content area, I think it would be ready to go.
okay, thank you.
I don't want to cut anybody off, but if we're ready to move on, I think we should move on. Okay. Good. All right. Mrs. Mast, are you handling summer programming or is Ms. Giblin?
It's actually going to be me.
Oh, Dr. Farina, great.
Yeah. So, and this will circle back to Dr. Drake's inquiry about something. Was there any sort of regulation that required us to make up hours in students' IEPs? The answer is no. We made a good faith effort to deliver special education programming in March. That they gave us that good faith time from March to the end of that school year. The expectation this school year is that we would implement an IEP with fidelity. And so it's an interesting dynamic in that in March of last year, regular education was actually the virtual world. So, they said as long as kids were receiving some level of good faith programming, it didn't absolve you from any potential litigation, but, certainly they understood the context at the time. However, way back then, our special ed team said, we want to make sure we give kids the opportunity to become whole, that's how it's described in the federal regulation. And so, through the grant work and the grant opportunities this year, we looked at our districts all together, both special ed and our regular ed students, and did a lot of work in grant writing. And through the ESSER grant and through some other Safe Schools grants, we're able to extend our ESY program. So we've expanded our ESY program. It's actually from June 28th all the way through July. 8 to 12, those 4 hours, we're going to get back those hours essentially. And, we normally run an ESY program that's 48 hours, but we're looking at 76 hours over this summer. Now, please keep in mind, ESY determination is actually finalized this week. Every school year, it's a standard time frame. And so, but parents don't have to accept ESY. It's an optional program, although if you're eligible for it, the school district affords it to you. Transportation is provided. It's generally in all of our buildings across the district, although we have a complicating factor with our Giza project at the high school. So we're still working on some facilities there. And so, the intent was to expand ESY program in order to continue the progress of kids toward their IEP goals. All of our kids, K to 12 across all of our programs, who meet eligibility criteria for ESY. So the answer is, were we required to do this? No. Do we believe it's in the best interest of our kids district-wide? Yes. So this is specific for students with disabilities. However, the next two summer opportunities, and we sort of touched base on this a little bit way back in the beginning of the year, there are some populations of kids that we know have had a very fractured springboard into their K to 12 educational journey. And so those are our kindergarten and our first grade kiddos who have not had this level of consistency. And so we wrote a grant, and it's the Ready to Learn grant. Well, that's not the grant, but it's Ready to Learn camp that's funded by the grant. And what we're looking to do is identify our sitting kindergartners and our first graders who are most in need. And so what we'd like to do is focus on literacy and mathematics. We'll use some of the criteria from the standardized assessments that our teachers give. albeit some of that was virtual. And we know that there may be some, question, but now that we're back in school, we can try to administer some of those assessments face to face. But we're looking to offer, those programs the 2nd of August through the 19th, right before we come back, in order to reacclimate the kids, hopefully face to face, to build some of those literacy and early numeracy skills, in order to sort of get them ready to move into their next subsequent grade level. And so that's one area that we're working on. And then, we can't obviously ignore the fact that we have kids in all grades who are potentially struggling. So we wrote a grant for Power Up Camp, and you'll see it falls similar to the ESY window, the end of June through mid-July. There are teachers across every grade level that we will identify. This includes middle and high school. We're still working with the middle and high school administrators to identify how they want to use that. We've always had credit recovery camps. We've always had math acceleration camps or challenge camps to test into higher level courses. So we want to redefine that. We'd like to offer two ELA and 2 math teachers at each of those levels, in order to provide some sort of support and remediation or credit recovery across all of the high school and middle school population, in order to meet some of those kids who really struggled with this fractured instruction over the last year and a half. So, we just want to let families know that ESY is what we're doing in February. Next month, the building level teams will start to look at some of their student data and start identifying students that we would invite to participate. One of the key factors that was a make or break for all of us when we were writing this is transportation had to be provided. And so we are happy to report that much of the funding and much of the purpose is to increase instruction and those kids' skills, but to get them there. We acknowledge that has always been a challenge, for our families. And so transportation is provided for all of these camps for the kids who are invited. So what we've asked principals to do is identify the list of kids who are in most need by grade level. We'll invite them. Parents, can accept or rescind our offer. And then we would invite another family, because we want to maximize our enrollment. And so as you can see, we're looking about 15 kids per classroom. So there really are a lot of kids that we're hoping to get here with us this summer, in order to recoup and continue them down this path to hopefully what is a more stable 21-22 school year. Does anybody have any questions? We're, the teams and the principals, we've been sort of keeping it, because, with grant work, you have to make sure you get it, and you have to make sure all of the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But, we're feeling really good that these funds are available, and we'll be able to deliver all these. Ms. Fisher has quite a task in posting all of these positions. It'll go on our Talent Ed site for our teachers to hopefully snatch up and work with this summer. But we are going to need a lot of staff over the course. Paraprofessionals are also in this grant. So it's every teacher will have a paraprofessional at the elementary in order to support them as well.
That's awesome.
Very happy to hear this. This is good.
It looks great. So that's all by grant. So that would be a net zero cost to the district.
Correct.
Is there anything we need above and beyond the grant? Like, does the grant hit everything, or are there still areas that we would want to do if we had the funds?
So I think that the grant covered the personnel and the transportation, which are huge. We still have need to have some conversations about curriculum and materials to make sure that those are intact and ready for the kids. But other than that, we may have to have some snack or water available for kids. The summer we do the cleaning, and, Doug Kenwood is, he's pulling his hair out because I'm telling him we're gonna have kids in the building all summer and he's saying, but I need to clean, you know, so it's just the logistics of it. But I think by and large, Dr. Drake, the grant it's significant. It's several $100,000 for these grants. So, you know, I think we should be good.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's like once in a century problem, just like if a tornado hit the building and, you know, we had an expenditure. So as part of the curriculum review process or the curriculum committee, if anything additional is needed, you know, please feel free to bring it forward.
Absolutely.
Carrie, don't mention any more tornadoes, please.
I don't know if they
Natural
have tornadoes in a
disasters.
snowstorm like we've had lately, but I don't know. Okay, thank you.
So does anybody else have any questions about summer programming? I'm not seeing any hands, but I only see four people at a time, so it's taking a while to scroll. Doesn't look like it. Just start speaking if you do. We're gonna move on to full day kindergarten. Woohoo!
So we are poised to give a full board presentation on Thursday. And it will cover the areas of full day K that we have been working on, it feels like for 4 years, but really it's just been the last couple. Certainly before that, I'm sure there were ideas tossed around. When we talk on Thursday, we'll be talking about how the curriculum review process is going. It's going excellently well. I see Tanya on the call. They're rocking it. I don't know who else. Greta is on the call. Those of you who are on my page, they're doing a super job with looking at the rewrite of curriculum, with looking at resources and materials. So we'll talk about that and a ballpark figure for that. We'll talk about personnel. You've already seen some of the options for facilities. I'll link to the furniture in just a minute and Dr. Farina can share that. You know, we're looking at potentially other costs, but I don't feel as though there are a lot of other ones. We feel like we're okay with transportation. We put it up there as kind of a placeholder. So in all of the meetings over this month, you'll hear about the pieces that are related to full day K, but certainly this Thursday will be the most comprehensive update we've given in a while, and we'll be able to put some numbers to it, which I know some of you have been waiting for. And so we'll be pleading in a way to say we have to move forward with registration and different things. And so how likely are we to go in the direction of full day K? So that's what Thursday's presentation will hold. I am going to link now to the proposal that we were sent by our friends at Corbett. And Dr. Farina, I'll turn that over to you.
So actually, this will get I'm just going to briefly mention it, and I linked it in here if anybody wanted to see it. But the bulk of this conversation will happen at facilities tomorrow night. And we are working, acknowledging that Hereford needs some attention in the facilities area. We're working with our friends down at Corbett who assisted us with all of our furniture renovations in our buildings. And they have shared some documents. Mrs. Zavadel, Mr. Kenwood, and myself went down to Corbett to view them. And I'll be sharing some more details about what that's going to look like and get the facilities committee's thoughts and feedback on our next steps as it relates to that. But really, this is when we talked about not doing a full blown renovation at Hereford, you know, we really talked about improving the facilities with furniture and casework. And these are renderings of that with an estimated cost per classroom that I'll share with facilities committee tomorrow night.
Will we require any type of renovations at Marlboro?
So we should not. We did walkthroughs with the principal with Allison at the time. We're going to upgrade some flooring. We have to invest some in technology there. You know, they have a much more modernized facility. We did talk about pretty extensively, though, unique furniture pieces that are appropriate for full day kindergarten. We would want to make sure that we were not doing that just for Hereford, and that Marlborough should also benefit from that. That's really going to have to be an outgrowth of conversations with the K teachers. Our thought is that we will pull together some of these just on base cost, and then turn it over to the kindergarten teachers to, within the financial parameters, identify their preference for a kindergarten classroom. But, Mrs. McGinnis, there really are some things that I think that going full day, we would want both facilities to have. And so, yes, not necessarily a renovation, but those would be purchases for the implementation of full day kindergarten.
So you're strictly talking furniture.
We are. Well, and casework. So, we had the opportunity to talk to some K teachers when we were down there. There are other facets of the K plan that are out there, some upgrade in electrical, lighting, some support in the wall feature, but the structure itself has some limitations because there are no load-bearing walls. So we have to engage Corbett to find us storage solutions so that, full day is all kids. We want to make sure Hereford has some of that. Marlborough has some of those built-ins in there that creates a little more appropriate kindergarten environment than our Hereford rooms. We have not found a solution to cover the green and yellow walls, though, I am sorry to say.
I just want to be sure that you guys are sure, because I don't want another, we're told at Hereford that renovations were minimal, and they're not. So just be upfront with us.
Well, we went through the scenarios that we laid out 3 scenarios in facilities, and including the inclusion of a shared bathroom, which, and I don't know, Melanie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, proved to be fairly cost prohibitive. Just given that Hereford may need a full renovation at some point, just building wide.
Right, I agree.
I don't know if Mo is still on here.
Yes, I am. Yeah, it wasn't that process of working with the architects and doing a feasibility study for obvious reasons. When you peel back one layer of the onion, you can find out a lot more than you even anticipated. So I was excited that even though we're not able to do some of the full gut renovations that I know are some of those wings could really use, the opportunity to get what we said is futuristic learning environments within obviously honoring the historical past of Hereford. We're able to provide a really neat look into the future while also honoring that, there are some things like we just discussed we cannot change, but it's a neat option to be able to give our new programming the opportunity to feel new for our students.
I had a house like that. Lots of skin.
I just don't want us to get to a point where we have to decide between bricks and mortar or programming. There's only so much money to go around.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm saying this fairly, Mo, so you can interject. I don't think, at least, and I see Tanya here, so maybe she could say, I don't think we would not want to offer full day K because we couldn't go with the top tier renovation at Hereford. I don't know if I don't want to speak on your behalf as kindergarten teachers, but I think that, there are kindergarten classrooms at Hereford now functioning in those environments. Our goal is to, we aimed for the sky, but, I don't know if anybody would not want to go forward because of the physical space.
We definitely want to go forward, but definitely don't have any storage. Like we don't. That you can't, we have no shelves. We have no, everything is, let me find that old rolly cart that I can bring in, or, hey, I went to a yard sale and I bought shelves. Oh, but I can't put them up against the wall because there's nothing to anchor them into. Mm-hmm. It just becomes a cluttered mess. So to see storage that our materials could get put away and the kids have a place to put their stuff, and there's different spaces to work is extremely exciting. So thank you.
It will feel purposeful and all tied together. So, to Tanya's point, it won't look like everyone's attic all in different spots. It'll actually look like a coordinated effort. And thank you, Peg. We always appreciate you advocating for the buildings, because at some point, you're right, Hereford is definitely going to need a deeper glance.
So as far as timing goes, I mean, what's the lead time for furniture? If I do my math right, we're 24 weeks from when September, when we would start. Is there enough time to be able to pick and order and get everything installed, or?
Yeah, I mean, really, we're sort of in this sort of critical juncture for a lot of reasons, including purchasing. If you all remember our other construction projects, casework can be very timely. Really, we need to finalize and get some decisions to the kindergarten teams in March with some decisions, and then we would want to bring it back to facilities, hopefully by the March meeting, and then move forward with ordering. But, none of it is budgeted for. So, that's the crux of the issue. The same with registration. We should be in the throes of registering kindergarten students, but we're not sure what they're registering for. So, it's publicity becomes difficult because there are significant financial obligations that have to occur in order for us to do all of this. So, and one would live in this year. Now I know it's a capital project. If I see Sandy, she's probably going to remind me of that. It is, but it's still, the board would have to approve that expenditure because it, we have other facets of the renovation that we want to address, not just furniture and casework. So I believe tomorrow at facilities, we're going to take a bigger look at finalizing some of those recommendations and setting a furniture and casework budget with the projections per cost per room. And then, we really do kind of need to turn it around, Dr. Drake, in order to get it in and installed before August.
Yep, in and installed, and then the personnel and the books and everything else.
Well, that's it, right? I mean, we all remember opening the high school.
Mhm.
We were moving furniture in 48 hours before kids walked in. So it's not what we want to live. And so, our hope is that by the beginning of August, it would be installed, giving our kindergarten teams the appropriate amount of time to set up that learning space.
Great. Well, then I guess that's a teaser for a facilities meeting tomorrow, but you're going to give a summary of it on Thursday?
Yes.
Okay.
And hopefully recommendations all around.
Yep.
Exactly.
Great. Well, good thing we had, what was it, a $5 million capital transfer this year from
Yes.
surplus? So, okay.
And there'll be a full presentation to the board at the board workshop on Thursday.
Thursday, yes, because we're hoping to use that as a springboard to start moving forward with some of the things that we need to do in order to do that. To get our logistics around offering full day going now, because that's really when it starts to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I don't recall it. Did last year, did we come out with the full recommendation that we were going to implement it?
No,
Or
we
did
said
come
we
out
would
that said we
investigate it.
Recommend it.
We
Okay.
passed a board motion to investigate.
Okay.
And so Thursday's presentation will be the result of that investigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Had a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Yes.
And looking for the nod or blessing or whatever comes, outside of budget approval to be able to start with parent information nights and registration and really readying the community for what will be a tremendous program thanks to those who are building it.
The clock is really ticking.
Now we feel it now.
Yeah. And if I recall, isn't it something like 70+% of Pennsylvania is full day kindergarten? I don't remember the exact number. It's pretty high.
I don't remember either. But I do know soon it will likely be mandated as well. So we're best to get rolling now. There's been a lot of talk about that.
Is that coming from Harrisburg, Kim?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mrs. Bass and Dr. Farina. So it is after 8. Did you want to discuss the class rank policy and procedure? Because I know you need to discuss that in policy. So you kind of wanted to bring it up here, right?
Yeah, this is just a teaser for policy. Tomorrow's a big night.
Yeah.
Policy and facility. There has been some talk, policy we will discuss. This is not necessarily for the policy committee tomorrow. Policy committee talked about this policy, 214 class rank. At that time, we made a recommendation for consideration to repeal. At the committee's will, they asked for a full presentation, which will occur at the end of March, our March 25th workshop, because kindergarten sort of bumped class rank right out of the way for obvious reasons, timing. But we want to include this, to put this on families' radar. This is a hot topic. People are very interested in how this will affect their children, their children's potential college enrollment. And so the committee, the current policy is there. We proposed either repealing it. However, after much conversation with some of our administrators, they said, well, maybe we could rewrite the policy with some revisions with the use of class rank as opposed to just repealing it altogether. So we'll be talking about this at the workshop, but I want everyone to just have it now because, March 25th is around the corner, believe it or not, and I don't want it to spring up on anybody. This is a hot topic. And so it's out there now for lots of questions and the board has this, we'll continue to talk about it. So our timeline, just for perspective's sake, is we'll present in March. We'll take it back to policy committee for feedback in April. And then, our recommendations for reads would have to fall out into, May and June. So we're really not going to make any decisions until June. I know Ms. Pennypacker and I want to be very thoughtful about policies and getting deeper and hearing people's voices in them. And so, we thought it best to put this out a month in advance. But we will do a presentation, the administrative team, Mrs. Bast and myself, on class rank and our recommendation.
So I see a question from Amy Zeit that says, so if I have questions about this issue, what meeting should I attend?
So we'll want to start at the March 25th workshop.
Workshop.
And then our April policy meeting, and then, it'll go to the board meeting in May and then go to the board meeting in June. If there's a change, if the committee moves it forward.
Yeah, so May 25th is the first big date.
Yeah.
March
25th.
Yeah, March 20th. Sorry, March 20th.
Like May, wait, no.
Trying to clarify, I got it wrong, March.
Right, the March Policy Committee meeting would be a good time to ask any questions you have about this policy then. So hopefully everybody got that. Dr. Farina, I'm going to make a request that we maybe move the MTSS update to our March Pupil Services Committee meeting in the interest of time. People have been on here a long time tonight, and I can't say enough how much I appreciate everybody coming into this meeting today and talking about this issue. I found it very, very helpful to hear from parents, to hear from teachers, and to just realize that, things aren't always black and white. And that there's so many complicated issues revolved around trying to do both virtual and in person. And I found it very enlightening. I hope everybody else found it as interesting as I did. And I want to thank Dr. Drake for letting me just chair our combined meeting together. It was very nice. We should really do this more often. Next time you could moderate it, because our topics really do overlap so frequently.
I have to say, I will jump on that bandwagon, Judy, because Kim and I talked. It's like there really isn't any meeting where we're not like
right,
because there's really not. There shouldn't, and that's the right thing.
You know, it really is true that they overlap so much. I'm gonna just throw out there before I call for an adjournment. Is there anybody who wanted to say something with regards to the topics we talked about tonight that I didn't give a chance to, or they thought of something else that they wanted to say? I think I just saw Mike Elliott raise his hand.
Oh,
And
no, I was just fixing my screen thing.
Oh, okay.
Thank you to everybody who came out tonight.
And there's a parent?
Obviously.
There's a parent hand up. Looks
Thank
like
you to all
Tam.
the teachers and everything.
Thanks, Mike. So I can't see the parent if.
It's Tammy Carpenter. Tammy, did you want to talk?
I just had one quick question about the class rank thing. Was that something that you were planning on implementing for this year? Or are you just something you're considering for possibly next year, or?
Yeah, so if you click the link for the proposed timeline, it would be for the class of 24 would be the first one that it would impact. So, you know, it takes a while because we publish class rank. So our sitting sophomores, juniors, and seniors already have class rank published on their report cards. So we would continue to phase those classes out. So it would start with the class of 24.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. All right.
Judy, if it's okay, first of all, I want to thank you for chairing the dual meeting. I didn't realize there would be that many people attending and all that. So thank you a lot for that. It wasn't like I was trying to get out of anything, but you did a great job. But I did just want to share one observation. You know, when we're going through all these conversations, with the teachers, with the parents, with board members, with administration, the thing that I really, like about it is it's not, as you might remember from years past, a lot of times it would be an us versus them conversation. Like, I want this and you want that. It's all us. We're all in the same boat together, and everybody wants to get to a solution. And you could really see and feel that, there's not any great solution, like Dr. Roche says almost every meeting that we have, but at least everybody is having a respectful conversation on how to get there. And I think it shows that everybody's trying their best. So, I'm glad to be a part of that. And I'm glad that everybody is trying so hard. I know we'll get through it. But it was just a quick observation.
And a great one. I agree 100% with you. It was really nice to just have discussion, and say nobody knows nobody knows the answer, but these are some ideas we have. Let's keep talking. That's the takeaway I get from this is we got to keep talking and work our way through this together. So I really appreciate the parents who came out tonight and all the teachers who came out tonight, and even the extra board members who arrived at our meeting. It really was wonderful. So thank you very much. On that note, as long as nobody sees any hands up, correct? Good. On that note, can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Great, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you again, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.